The justice system is a location known to determine the outcome of people's lives, with public defenders as the underdogs wielding determination, fighting for the idea that justice doesn't have a price tag. In theory, representation from these individuals should be a fair mediator for perpetrators of the law. However, the reality is the quality of representation acquired by individuals is relative to how prosperous their wallets are. If you've got money, you can hire a top-tier attorney who has the time and resources needed to give an adequate inspection of your case. Otherwise, if your pockets draw blanks at its opening, you'll find yourself being represented by an overworked public defender who doesn't have sufficient time to dedicate all their efforts to your case, mitigating their abilities in the courtroom. Poverty can be a restrictive factor in getting just representation in court systems. Without the access to proper funds or living in an area with a poorly funded public defense, you're immediately placed at a disadvantage in your legal battle.
You know, the judges used to say, you act like every case is serious. I said, it is serious. Anytime somebody can go to jail one day is serious. We'll give him probation. I'm like, no. In my class, oh, I'll take it. I said, no. And he said, well, we'll give him a conditional discharge. My client's getting mad at me because he doesn't know what I know. And then I finally said, Judge, it's my understanding that the co-defendant already took the plea. And then all of a sudden, my client's case gets dismissed. And what if I hadn't have done that? You know, and when someone pays you privately, they got to pay everything, not just your fee, but they have to pay the investigator, they got to pay the forensic expert, they got to pay the doctor, and so
Mal-assembled defenses fall to shambles in the courtroom. From the sheer lack of preparation and attention paid to a case combined with the massive workload imposed on a public defender, clients are immediately placed in a losing position. In addition to lack of proper defense, the inability to access an expert witness is devastating. For example, cases requiring the expertise of a forensic scientist for evidence reliability, including fingerprints or DNA sampling, can only be accessed by wealthier defendants that can challenge crucial or even verdict-defining evidence.
Attorneys. And yes, the members of the public defender's office are real and capable attorneys. If you ask me, some of the best representation comes from public defenders. It is a difficult job, and resource-wise, it's not, in my opinion, the capability of the attorneys. It is actually the resources that are given to public defenders as it relates to their cases and case loads. Okay, so your public defenders are in courtrooms across the state day by day, handling volumes of cases. And that can be difficult because anytime that you have 50, 60, 70 cases at a time, it does make it difficult from a resource perspective.
Legal aid can also differ based on location. The chances of finding law firms in poorer/less developed areas can be pretty low. Additionally, this brings up a critical point, and that's if you live in a poorer area, you will also receive less and worse legal aid due to the funding of the public defense, diminishing your chances of winning or even subjecting yourself to plea deals due to the pressure of a prolonged pretrial or threats of harsher sentences if they go to trial. However, some legal aid is helpful and beneficial if the public defense is funded well enough by the state.
There is a significant amount of pressure on the client as it relates to pleading, accepting a plea deal from the state, and sentencing. So absolutely, clients oftentimes may say, I want this to be over with. I want to be done with this. On the one hand, I want to defend my innocence, right? And I want to be tried by a jury and defend my innocence. And at the same time, clients also, when plea deals are conveyed by the state and are offered by counsel, which would be me, to the client, yeah, I frequently also hear, I just want to be done with this. I want this to be over so I can move on with my life. So absolutely, in terms of putting contact with the criminal legal system behind them, absolutely clients are frequently motivated by ending the criminal trial process and moving on with whatever is next for them.
Data collected by Oklahoma County in regarding to court-ordered costs for a sample of indigent misdemeanor defendants demonstrates how these defendants not only face direct legal costs, but are also burdened by collateral consequences such as debt from previous cases, creating a cycle of disadvantage due to the defendant's lack of financial resources. The table suggests that the system operates under an assumption of financial capability, which ignores the reality of indigent defendants' circumstances, creating a financial barrier to their justice.
In spite of multiple disadvantages and seemingly impossible adversities, public defenders aren't inferior or inadequate to any other lawyer. They face a nuisance that doesn't allow them to truly represent their client to the maximum. Essentially, the challenges they face are not a reflection of their abilities, but of a system in desperate need of reform and change. Increased funding, reduced caseloads, and structural changes are necessary to empower public defenders to provide the proper representation their clients deserve. To say public defenders are inferior is just not accurate. It undermines the crucial role they play in upholding justice for all.
A lot of times, people say, Kim, you're not a social worker. And I said, but yeah, that's part of the job. It's not just defending people, it's knowing people and having a relationship with your client and understanding their background, understanding who they are, where they come from, and what their family life was like. And sometimes, many times you find out that people are just making it.
Legal representation isn't a privilege, it's an expense which not everyone can afford. And although everyone is entitled to a public defender, it's misleading to believe that the court system is fair when there is a paid legal system that disproportionately favors those with financial resources. Public defenders often operate under the weight of an unjust infrastructure, which limits their ability to provide the level of representation their clients deserve. Therefore, the root issue lies not in their competence, but in systemic disparities that perpetuate inequality. Legal representation should not hinge on socioeconomic status. It must be recognized as a fundamental right that allows every individual, regardless of their financial situation, to receive a fair trial. Ultimately, reforming the system isn't just about helping public defenders. It's about restoring the principle of justice that the legal system is meant to uphold. When society invests in equal access to legal representation, we affirm the idea that fairness and justice are not privileges, but the standard.
Always fought as a public defender the same way I would fight for somebody who paid me $25,000.